My client's been charged with marijuana possession, but marijuana possession's been suspended from the schedule for over 18 months now, according to the Ontario Court of Appeal. And Judge Phillips of the Windsor Provincial Court said, "You're right, there is no marijuana law," and therefore all the possession charges were thrown out of the Windsor Provincial Court since that date, since January of this year. The government appealed it, and Superior Court Justice Stephen Rogan on May 16th also declared, yes, marijuana possession is not an offence known unto law in Canada. Very specifically, he said it's been struck out of the Canadian Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. But he is a Superior Court judge in an Ontario court, so now it's binding on all the courtrooms in Ontario. That's why, for the last 3 months, no one in Ontario has been charged with possession of marijuana. But you'd ask, how do 10 million Canadians have a privilege and right under the Charter of Rights, which is how this came out, that the rest of us do not have? And that is why I'm traveling across Canada and smoking in front of police stations throughout Canada. This is the 8th province I've been in. I have smoked in front of Toronto, Regina, Winnipeg, Charlottetown, Moncton, St. John's, Newfoundland, Halifax.
How many provinces have you been charged?
I've been charged in Halifax. I've been charged in Moncton. I was charged in St. John's, Newfoundland. I was charged in Regina, Winnipeg, and Calgary. I was not charged in Halifax, where a judge has agreed that marijuana possession is no longer an offence known unto law, and so I wasn't charged there. In Summerside, Prince Edward Island, a judge has also said marijuana possession is not an offence known unto law, and I wasn't charged in that jurisdiction. And in Toronto, where my campaign started, I smoked in front of the Toronto Police Department because the Toronto Police said they would take the marijuana away, but admitted they had no legal right to charge me. And I said, well, marijuana now is unregulated and as lawful as tomatoes or lettuce or celery. You can't take away that. You haven't even any right to detain me if I'm not breaking any law.
How could they take it away from you?
Well, they didn't. In fact, we were out in front of the Toronto Metropolitan Police Station for over an hour smoking marijuana, and they never came anywhere near us, proving that, in fact, the police admit that marijuana possession in those jurisdictions where courts have recognized the law as it is, that there is no marijuana, that marijuana possession is legal and lawful, and I wasn't charged. So, by the way, new arrivals, grab a brochure, get a magazine, please hand those out. I also want to point out this, even if marijuana is legal, but remember, Parliament is a tricky instrument. There is not a single parliamentarian who has ever gone up and asked the Attorney General of Canada, what is the moral basis by which we persecute the marijuana smokers of Canada? What is the moral basis by which 3 million people are persecuted for 35 years? What is the moral basis by which we've criminalized 1 million Canadians? 1 million Canadians, on an average of 30,000 people a year since 1970, have been convicted of marijuana offenses. What is the moral basis of that? How has the country gained by such legislation? We spend $2 billion a year on marijuana prohibition. Where is the benefit? Where do Canadians receive the benefit? You know, of all those millions of people, many people were convicted in their youth. If you have a marijuana conviction, you cannot travel to the United States. You cannot attend a university or college in the United States. You can't work for a company that does business in Canada simultaneously. You can't become a trucker. You can't become bonded for security work. A marijuana conviction is a stain on your entire future. And over 1 million Canadians have this on their record. And where does Canadian society benefit? We spend $2 billion a year, we override the civil rights of millions of Canadians, we create a police state that allows the police to thermal image through your home with heat-seeking devices to probe your privacy and break the privacy of your own home. We have all sorts of harassments and searches going on and detentions all about marijuana all the time.
They put an ounce of pot in my pocket and they said, you're under arrest. I got 6 months free.
And that's the problem too, is that marijuana prohibition corrupts police departments. It can't help it. It attracts organized crime into areas where lucrative profits are made because marijuana is on the black market. You know what? I have seen the future and it's beautiful. It's today. Marijuana is legal. And what we could do right now, Edmonton City Hall could regulate. No, it's legal. It's legal because the Ontario Court of Appeal has suspended cannabis from the schedule of the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. But in a legal environment, it's a win-win situation for everyone. Remember, when something's illegal, you cannot regulate it or see what's going on. It stays beneath the surface. But when marijuana now is legal, Edmonton City Council could license people to grow marijuana with electrically safety certified permits so that the electricity and the hookups in their house are safe and conform with the Canadian Safety Association. Instead, what happens now when people grow marijuana, they get their friends to set up their electrical system. That's not very reliable. People spray all sorts of pesticides and poisons on marijuana. Agriculture Canada, in a legal environment, has a requirement to make sure that anything you consume as a member of the public has no chemicals or poisons on it, and that we could get if Agriculture Canada, in a legal environment like we have today, can come up to that marijuana and say that's not safe for consumption. You can't be selling that sort of thing. And the city can zone places to sell marijuana. And you know how marijuana would be sold? We'd have 25 or 30 different kinds, vacuum sealed for $35 to $50 an ounce. The government would collect its GST and PST. The producers would pay their income tax. We would get protection under law. There'd be no more home invasions for people stealing our money, stealing our marijuana, ruining our grow-ups. No longer would SWAT teams of police agents, 8 of them with flak jackets on, come smashing through your house at 3:30 in the morning looking for your marijuana grow operation, you know, screaming at you, risking, I mean, in British Columbia, people have had their dogs killed, their children seeing blood spatter all over the house from dogs being killed. People get home invaded by police and by thieves late at night, and it's a terrifying thing. You know, over 500,000 children have grown up in Canada in the last 30 years with one or both parents in jail for extended periods of time over marijuana. I treat hardcore drug users and cure them with a valuable extract called ibogaine. I have a ibogaine therapy that I use, and I treat a hardcore drug user every week. And I have seen that principally almost all people who are addicted to hard drugs are missing one or both parents as large chunks of their childhood. Childhood trauma as a result of a missing parent is the leading, I think, conduit to hardcore drug addiction. No matter what else you've had, when people have a traumatized childhood, they have a wounded soul and they seek out these hard drugs as a way of dealing with the pain of having grown up in an alienated environment. When we put people, adults, away in jail and leave their children without a parent, we are committing far more harm than any drug use is going to do to those people. So the drug war, the marijuana wars, the prohibition wars of the last 35 years have caused incalculable damage to our society. They've had us spend money needlessly, billions of dollars. We've lost our civil rights. The police have gained far more power and authority over us because of the drug war. You know, there's things they can do to you they can't do to a murderer. They can seize your property and assets from you if you're growing marijuana in your home. They can't do that to a murderer. A murderer doesn't lose his home. He doesn't lose his car. He doesn't lose his possessions. He loses nothing in the way of property. But you are growing a plant. And by the way, the new proposals from the federal government are asking the courts to give up to 14 years penalty for growing marijuana in your home, over 50 plants. Let me tell you, there's 75,000 to 100,000 marijuana grow-ups in British Columbia, and imagine how rental prices would be totally depressed if there wasn't, if you had 100,000 vacant houses not growing pot. But in British Columbia, 75 to 100,000 grow-ups employing about 250,000 people. Those people are now at risk with the new proposals of the federal government to 14 years in jail. Now, I'm not suggesting that people are going to get 14 years, but it shows you what the government's priorities are. Conspiracy to commit terrorism is only 10 years in the criminal code. And I'm not suggesting it should be more, but to give you an idea, most major crimes, assault, burglary, robbery, armed robbery, bank robbery, manslaughter, are up there in the 10 to 15-year penalty. So the government's trying to send a message that growing 50 marijuana plants in the corner of a bedroom is tantamount to terrorism, it's tantamount to armed robbery, it's tantamount to a brutal assault or rape. It is not. Marijuana, don't we love marijuana? Come on.